Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. Today we're going to take a look at Lance Franklin, roll through a few of the pros and cons and hand out a verdict on Big Buddy. Now of course in these player profile I take a look at some of the more relevant selections in SuperCoach 2017 that are presenting us over the pre-season. So at the moment Lance Franklin, he's in 15% of sides and has long been a favourite of our SuperCoach teams. Of course he's served us very well as a key position player over the journey. 514k you'll have to pay for him, and he is just starting to get on the wrong side of 30. So I am starting to wonder how relevant SuperCoach wise Buddy is, and I was starting to think about it and I looked into the stats, and I did say that he was no longer fantasy relevant in the Sydney preview. And sometimes in this game you've got to make big calls, and I will stand by that. I will put a line through Lance Franklin, as good as he has been. First of all though, I will roll through the pros and cons and then delve deeper into that in the verdict. Of course the pros with Buddy, he's one of the most exciting players in the game and one of the most damaging, capable of hurting you on the ground and taking a mark. Such an unbelievable forward, kicks goals, can win it on the ground. As I said, his hands have improved in the air, once a weakness, but he's forever been able to cover the ground extremely well. He's dynamic, new club, successful club, has moulded in there pretty well, has continued to score pretty reasonable numbers. And we know the deal with Lance Franklin. He'll be as exciting as anyone, kick your goals, burst out of stoppages, on the run, out the back. He does it all. He's extremely exciting, and that's why we love watching him. But I just do query the hard numbers at times. So I don't think we need any convincing on what makes Buddy such a fantastic player. At his peak, he could work up the ground, win a bit of the ball there, and was nearly unstoppable inside 450. Probably had a more consistent season last year. Sometimes we expect a roller coaster from Buddy, but last year actually produced plenty of 80 to 100 games with less of your 40s and 50s, and also less of your sort of 135 plus games. So historically he has been a roller coaster, not so much last year, more consistent, which was interesting with Franklin. But just looking at his cons, now it's largely due to his scoring. Now I think there hasn't been a major drop off with Buddy at any stage. Of course he has had his ongoing issues at times with a few problems that have kept him out of the game, but he seems to be back and loving footy and playing some great footy. I mean, he kicked 81 goals last year. But just looking at the numbers, I'll read you from 2008 to 2012. Of course, his peak and in the prime. Average in SuperCoach: 107, 87.9, 110, 115.5. Fantastic numbers. 2013 to the present day: 90.4, 99.9, 87.1, 94.6. Now they're good numbers, especially for a key forward, but I just feel like we have to start to question that his graph is no longer going up, and I just wonder whether Franklin is now more your high 80s to mid 90s sort of guy. And I just wonder, with where the graph is going for Franklin, whether we're more likely to see an average of 91 or 92. And I'm not sure that's good enough. I don't think there's any absolute cons with Buddy's game. Of course, he still had a fantastic season last year. Hasn't looked to drop off physically at all. But there's no doubt Franklin isn't getting better. And I just think when you're presented with a player who's 500k and a key position type, they really need to be at their peak. Now I'm sort of working into my verdict here, I guess, aren't I? So I may as well officially say, here is my verdict. As I mentioned earlier, I will not be picking Franklin, and I doubt I will ever be picking him again. I think he's been a fantastic SuperCoach player for us over many years, but the past 4 seasons, as I said, there's only one good season in there, and that was the 99.9. You know, 94.6, that's a reasonable return. But as I mentioned, I don't think that graph is going up. I think we've seen him hover between, as I said, his 2 points, 87 and 99.9. I think there's a real danger, not a danger because they're still good scores, but as far as premium stocks are concerned, I think there is a worry that for the remainder of his career, and if he's going to live up to that deal, it needs to be a lengthy one, I think we could see him average between that 86 and 93, 94. Now that's a pretty handy return, and if maybe you feel that he's closer to that 94, or maybe you feel like you're a little bit more confident in Buddy than I am, and you feel like you might get 96, 97, I couldn't argue with that, because premium options in our forward line are a little scarce at the moment. But I do think that Buddy's best is behind him, maybe not from a goal scoring point of view. And even looking through his stats, there weren't anything that jumped off the page as to why he's scoring from those, hundreds, mid 100s. Of course, when he averaged 115, he just went enormous and went berserk with his goals. But there isn't any number that absolutely jumps off the page significantly. Just maybe a slight drop in touches, maybe a slight drop in tackles, or a slight drop in contested marks. They're very, very minor things. So I couldn't put my finger on an exact area of his game that he needs to improve. For whatever reason, all we can look at are hard numbers. And 90.4, 99.9, 87.1, 94.6. That creates a history of a man who is just turned 30. I don't see him exploding. I mean, this would be different if a bloke was maybe 26, 27 and you felt that he could re-find his best form. I'm not sure whether Buddy will do that, and I just feel with those last 4 seasons, the hard facts that we're presented with, that maybe he will just hover in your low 90s, maybe mid 90s. If that is enough for you, then fair enough. But I do think with the likes of Dalhouse and McRae, Caddy and the like, obviously Rewalt also, maybe there's other key forwards that might have overtaken him. Tom Lynch, Jack Gunston, a few of those types. Of course, I mentioned Rewalt. Jared Roughhead's nice and cheap. Toby Nankervis is now coming into consideration. I think once Heaney went, a lot of people did start looking for other options, and Franklin has come into consideration a little bit more. But I must say that I'm not going to sit on the fence with this one. I will put a line through one of the more fantastic and watchable SuperCoach players and AFL players that we've been presented with in recent years. He's been absolutely fantastic for us. But I just think if we're spending that much cash and digging deep into our pockets, that if we spend that much money, we really need a bit more certainty and a bit more convincing over the last few years that we will get premium numbers for what is a premium price investment. So that's my concern. I'm not sure how this video will be received. Some people may not agree at all, but I'll be interested to see your comments. Let me know if you are starting Buddy. I mean, as I said, he's in 15% of sides, so by all means he has been somewhat popular. But of course, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel as always. Next up, we'll take a look at a man who has hurt us at times, but also shown that his scoring ability at his best is unrivaled in the competition. Where will he fall in those two categories in 2017? Well, that could define how you go in your midfield. I'll take a look at him next. As for now, I look forward to hearing your comments on Buddy Franklin and where you stand with him, and plenty more comments coming your way, and plenty of content, of course, as always. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll catch you soon.